Onto the final programming extension, number 10, to shoot the monster. So we have a new item in the cavern. Some gun of some description allows you to shoot horizontally or vertically once per go, making the monster sleep for one go. So here we're going to offer the user, or player I should say, the chance to shoot the monster in either an east, west, north, south direction. And if the monster is in that column or that row that the shot is fired, then they are hit and they sleep for a go. So let's have a look at how to do this. Okay, start at the beginning. Create a couple of local variables. You'll see what these are for shortly. Shot direction and valid shot. So we're in the play method here, just to say. Now in the play method, just like we get the move from the player and we validate that they've put in a valid move, east, west, north, south, I've got a very similar validation here. Display some shot options to the player, get their chosen shot option and validate it. Check it's one of the allowed directions. I've also put in I. They can choose to ignore, because you don't always want to shoot at the monster if you know you can't hit it because you're not on the same row or the same column. Okay, so there's this validation here. Now, just to say why I've put that code there. So here we've got the player's move, and then there's all this handling of if the player hits the flask or the pit of doom or a trap. That's all managed there. And then when we get to this part, if the game is still continuing because the player hasn't jumped on the monster or been eaten, blah blah blah, then it's the monster's turn. So the monster gets its 2 goes here, loop until count equals monster get move count, which returns 2. So this is the monster's go. So just before the monster has its go, what I've done is I've added this feature to take a shot. So shot is collected from the user, and then test if they have chosen not to ignore, so they've chosen east, west, north or south. And now I've added a new method to the enemy class, and monster is an instance of the enemy class. Check if he's shot, and that takes as its parameters the player's position and their shot direction. So this, we'll have a look at this method, but this method tests if the monster has been shot. And if they have been shot, then a message is displayed. You have shot the monster. Else, if you didn't ignore, display you missed the monster. And then we've got all the monsters handling here. So this code here which loops around, and the monster gets its turn, and there's all the checks. See if the monster has eaten the player or not, or hit a pit, etc. So the fact that this monster move is in the else part of this selection means that if you hit it, the monster misses its go. So that's essentially what we wanted from the requirement. Monster misses a go if we hit it. So that's the sort of bulk of it, really. This extra taking a shot, validating, and checking if the monster was hit and having the monster move if it wasn't hit. Let's see what else there is. So some new methods to display messages. You hit the monster or you miss the monster. This is the displaying of shot options, so you can shoot north, south, east, west, or choose to ignore. Get the direction is much like get move. It's a read line basically, to return the user's character that they entered. And then we've got the validation, so make sure that the shot is one of these, else validation is false and the loop continues so until the user enters one of these options. And then the only other bit is the check if is shot. So let's have a quick look. So the enemy class, now I have added this method, check if is shot, takes a position, so this is the player's position passed in, and takes the player's shot direction. And enemy inherits from item, so if you remember, the protected variables are number of cells east and number of cells south, so that gives us, these give us the position, this number of cells east and number of cells south of the enemy or the monster. So let's have a look. So passed in two direction, if the player has chosen south and the monster's number of cells east is the same as the player's number of cells east, and the monster's number of cells south is greater than the player's position of number of cells south, then it must have been hit because the monster is further south. This is so, in other words, this number is larger than the player's number of cells south. So the player and monster are on the same column because number of cells east is the same, but the monster is further south. It's at a lower row than the player. Therefore, if the player chose south, then that direction would hit the monster. And so we've got very similar logic for north. It's the same, except the player needs to be, the monster needs to be more north than the player. And similarly for east and west, the number of cells south needs to be the same. So in other words, the same on monster and player on the same row, but then checking that the monster's to the left if the player shoots west, or the monster is to the right if the player shoots east. And then we return true if was shot. So just a reminder that that is called in the play method. Check if is shot. So that's really all that needs to be done to manage the monster being shot, from testing if the monster was shot, and also for having it miss a go.